Hi, everyone. I'm Wiley Blevins. I'm an author and editorial director at Reycraft Books. I'd like to welcome you back to our Reycraft Read Alouds. Today, I want to read to you a book that's a little bit longer. It's part of our early chapter book series, our Powwow mystery series. You might have seen some of these books before, The Powwow Thief, The Powwow Dog, and there are more to come. Today, I'm going to read The Powwow Dog. It is written by Joseph Bruchac, who is tribally enrolled in the Nulhegan Abenaki Nation, and it's illustrated by Dale DeForest, who grew up on the Navajo Reservation. And after I read, I have a special treat for you. I have an interview with Joseph Bruchac, the author, and he talks about the book, why he wrote it. The interview, we'll play just a portion of it. It's about 10 minutes long. And if you want to see the entire interview, you can go to our YouTube channel and see that. So I hope you enjoy The Powwow Dog. The Powwow Dog by Joseph Bruchac, illustrated by Dale DeForest. Chapter 1, The Old House. The old house at the edge of the reservation sat empty. It had something like a little house built on top of it. That's called a cupola, Maria thought. All the windows were dark. They looked like staring black eyes. The shingles needed paint. The metal roof was rusted. Its front door stood partly open. The only thing nearly new was a garage on the side. The garage door was pulled down. "This place looks haunted," Maria said. "It sure does," Jamie agreed. Grandpa slowed down their van to look. "Nobody there now. Your grandma and I went to Indian school with the man whose family owned that place, Thomas Jefferson Jimerson. He used to live there. Is he, Marie said. "As far as I know," Grandma said, "he's still alive. He moved away about 10 years ago. He went to Buffalo to be closer to his grown children. They have good jobs there. Hard to get work around here, you know. We haven't seen Tommy in years." Jamie turned around in his seat to stare at the house. Did he see something white move next to it? A shiver ran down his back. Then they turned a corner, and he lost sight of whatever it was. "Here we are," Grandpa said. A broad field stretched out in front of them. Other vans were already there. Jamie could see people setting up their booths. A fire burned brightly in the center of the dance circle. Best powwow grounds in this part of New York State. The only powwow grounds in this part of New York State. Chapter 2, Us Indians. By early afternoon, the powwow grounds were crowded. Folks of all sorts, native people and non-natives, African Americans and people who had Spanish accents, men and women wearing leather jackets and motorcycle boots. Grandpa chuckled. "Bikers sure love us Indians, you know. For a while there, I had a Harley." The twins tried not to stare, but it was so interesting. Some people looked and dressed as if they had come from other countries. They were speaking languages the twins had never heard before. Grandma nodded in the direction of a young woman wearing a colorful sari. The young woman came to their booth. "I'll bet she's a student from the university. It's only 3 miles from here." "Hello," she said. "Kuli pao," Grandpa said. "You're welcome here." The woman beamed a bright smile. "Thank you," she said. "So you are American Indians?" Grandma smiled back. "That is what they call us. We just call ourselves people." "Ah, well, I'm Indian too. India Indian. I am from Kolkata." Grandma and the young woman began talking about Grandma's beaded bracelets. Before long, the young woman bought 3 bracelets, including one Marie had made. "This one is my favorite." "Oh, did you see that?" Whoosh! The twins looked where the young woman pointed. Across from them was a stand selling buffalo burgers. "The Seneca Chef," read the sign. The chef stood behind the table. He had his hands on his hips. His lips were pressed together, and he was shaking his head. "What happened?" "A large dog grabbed food and ran with it. That way." The twins looked. The dog was nowhere to be seen. But Marie noticed something she had not seen before. Beyond the far end of the field, it stuck up above the trees, the cupola of the haunted house. Chapter 3, Nobody Goes in There. At 2 p.m., the dance competition started. Everyone crowded around the dance circle. "No customers till the dancing is over," Grandma said. "You kids go ahead and watch the dancing. Maybe you can find another mystery to solve. Look, we could see better there. The twins walked to the edge of the crowd. It was hard to see with so many people around the dance circle. Off to the right, the ground rose up to make a little hill. No one was on it. But before they reached the hill, 4 other children climbed on it. Jamie and Marie stopped. "This is our hill," the biggest kid said. His t-shirt had the design of an eagle on it. Jamie and Marie started to walk away. "Hey," the biggest kid said. "Want to join us? I'm Cody." "And I'm Bear," said the second boy. "Nikki," said the second girl. "And this is our reservation. There's plenty of room. I'm Sunflower." Soon, all 6 of them were talking like old friends. It turned out 2 of the fancy dancers were Cody's brothers. They all watched until the competition was over. I'd be out there, but I sprained my ankle in lacrosse last week." The 4 kids walked with the twins partway back to Grandma and Grandpa's booth. Like the twins, the 4 local kids had jobs helping their families at their booths. "Which way did you come in?" Cody asked before they parted. "Off the interstate onto Frog Street?" "Uh-huh," Jamie said. "Did you see old man Jimerson's place?" The twins nodded. "Haunted," Cody said. "I never go near there," Sunflower said. "Nobody ever goes in that place," Bear said. "If they do, nobody ever sees them again," Nikki whispered. Another chill went down Jamie's back. Chapter 4, A Ghost Dog. When they got back to their booth, Grandpa was standing in front of it laughing. "Oh my," he said, "you missed the show." "What happened?" Marie asked. "That big white dog came back, took another burger when the Seneca chef had his back turned." "Really?" Jamie asked. "Really," Grandma said. "It ran so fast that it disappeared among all the cars in the parking part of the field. Like a ghost," Grandpa said. "That's spooky," Jamie thought. "Did anyone chase it?" Marie asked. "Not really," Grandma said. "It stopped and looked back like it wanted to be chased. Then it took off again like a shot. Everyone's too busy at their booths to waste time chasing something they can't catch." "Maybe it is a ghost dog," Grandpa said. He chuckled again. "No way you can catch a ghost." "A ghost dog?" Another chill went down Jamie's back. Then he had an idea. "Wait a minute," he thought. He looked over at his twin and she nodded. Maybe they could solve this mystery. "Grandpa, which way did that dog go?" "Towards those trees." Grandma looked over her glasses at the twins. "You two have an idea, don't you? Can we take a little more time off from helping you?" Chapter 5, Buffalo Burgers. Marie and Jamie talked over their plan. "Is your phone charged?" Marie asked. "Good. I'll wait here where I can see the Seneca chef's booth. I'll go way over by those trees, and I'll call you if anything happens." Jamie walked past the hundreds of parked cars to the strip of forest between the Powwow grounds and Frog Street and sat down to wait. The late summer sun felt good on his face. He closed his eyes. Suddenly, his phone began to ring. The Buffy St. Marie song he uses the tone for Marie. He grabbed the phone out of his pocket. "Big sister, coming, your way." Jamie looked up just in time to see a white streak heading straight for him. He had to step aside or he would have been knocked down by the big dog. It stopped to look back at him. A buffalo burger dangled from its mouth. Whoosh! Then it turned and ran. It went straight to old man Jimerson's house and through the open door. "Get over here, quick!" He waited until Marie reached him. The old house looked even spookier now. "Are we really going over there?" "We have to." "Hello?" Jamie took a deep breath. "Okay," he said, trying to sound as brave as his sister. They walked over to the old house and paused at the front door. Marie leaned in. "Hello?" she said, her voice echoing. A loud woof bounced off the walls inside. Jamie grabbed his sister's hand. Then they heard a weak voice. "Help! I'm in here." They tiptoed inside. An old native man lay on the floor at the bottom of the stairs. The white dog crouched next to him, wagging its tail. Thank the Lord, the old man said. Been here since I fell down the stairs last night. 3 buffalo burgers sat on the floor next to him. One of them was half eaten. The twins stayed with Mr. Jimerson until the emergency squad arrived. You kids did well, one of the emergency squad men said to them. Who knows how long he might have been stuck here? I guess no one saw him coming late last night. Because he put his car in the garage and shut the door, it looked like the place was still empty. Is he going to be all right? Marie asked. Can't say for sure, but his vitals are good. I'm guessing a broken hip. Children, Mr. Jimson waved at them from the stretcher. Go ahead, the emergency squad man said. I guess you saved my life, Mr. Jimson said. Niawe, thank you. Marie shook her head. It was your powwow dog. She patted the head of the big white dog leaning against her. You said you're at the powwow with your grandparents, the Longbows? Jamie nodded. So you're the grandkids of my old school friends, Bunny and Flash. Marie looked shocked. Mr. Jimison smiled. That's how everyone called them back then. Will you say hello for me? Of course, said Marie. One more thing. Can you take care of Wolfie till my kids can come get him later today? I can see he likes you. Jamie and Marie both nodded. Good. Leisha's there by the door. Here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. Jamie shook his head. You don't have to pay us. Mr. Jimerson laughed and then made a face. The laughing hurt his hip. Nope, he said, but somebody's got to pay for those buffalo burgers. So once again, Jamie and Marie solved the mystery, and this time the mystery of the powwow dog. As I said before, this book was written by Joseph Bruchac, who is tribally enrolled in the Abenaki Nation, and I want to play for you part of an interview with Joe, and this interview was conducted by my friend and co-worker, Eileen Robinson, so I hope you enjoy. I'll play about 10 minutes of it, and then I will come back and say goodbye to you.
Hi, my name is Eileen Robinson. I'm with Reycraft Books. We are a new trade publisher. Our focus is publishing authors and illustrators from underrepresented groups. And I'm sitting here with the amazing Joe Bruchac. He is the author of the new Powwow series, and I'm so happy and so honored to be in his presence. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm so glad you're here.
Happy to be here.
And I want to talk to you about the Powwow series that you are writing for us.
Of course.
And ask you how that came to be.
Well, when I was given the opportunity to create a series of books that were of interest to that age and would represent a community of people that was underrepresented, my first thought was one of the most common and one of the most enjoyable parts of contemporary Native American life, and that's the powwow. And to have kids be the center of the story, but also children with their grandparents, seemed to be the right way to do it. So each book has a different episode, a kind of miniature detective story that my 2 young characters have to solve in the framework of different powwows that they travel to with the grandparents who are craftspeople and selling their goods at each of these powwows.
Oh, and we love the series, as you know, and you have done 3 of them for us so far. And this is the first book, The Powwow Thief. Can you tell us a little bit about this particular story and maybe your favorite scene in the story?
Well, the 2 children in the story, a brother and a sister, have very different personalities. The sister is the one who's sort of the dominant member of the family and very intellectual. She's always reading. And the brother is a little bit resentful of his sister. He calls her big sister because she's slightly older by a few minutes. But between the 2 of them, there's a real connection with the grandparents, with each other, and with their community. So they're not kids who are disenfranchised or kids who are feeling out of place. And I wanted this to be contemporary Native kids, because often when people think of Native Americans, they think in the distant past. They think of people who are not present, and yet these are kids with cell phones. This is a little girl who's interested in ornithology, so she's learning the names and the habits of birds, which is part of the plot of this particular story. And yet they're helping out their grandparents for the summer as they travel on the powwow circuit, which is what a lot of contemporary Native people do. They work throughout the wintertime, making various crafts, such as the jewelry their grandmother makes, And then when the good weather comes, when it's warmer, they travel from city to city, from part of the country to another part of the country where these powwows are taking place. And I also, I think one of my favorite scenes is when they're giving the booth over to a friend of theirs they call Sleepy Mickey, who's based on an actual friend of mine,
Oh, wow.
who is much more interested in eating his cookie and dozing while he's supposed to
I
be
remember
watching the
that
booth.
part.
And I love that little scene where it's gone. He says, "What, my cookie?" "No, the necklace." "Oh."
Yeah, yeah, and his cookie is much more important than the necklace.
Yes.
Well, this is interesting. Powwows. You could have written about anything, you know,
Hmm.
in your travels. Why powwows in particular?
Well, for one, I've been involved in the powwow scene for decades. We actually run our own Native American festival once a year in Saratoga Springs, New York. Get about 4,000 people coming to it.
Oh, wow.
And it's myself and my family who've been running it for the last more than a decade. I've also performed as a storyteller and a flute player at powwows. And I love to go to them because there's so many interesting things are going on. There are so many interesting things going on, everything from dancing, all kinds of traditional native food, and the work that people do is just beautiful. I'm wearing a few things right now that are from the powwow circuit, like this little bear claw necklace, which was
Wow.
given to me, and this little hishi, which is shell beads made by a friend of mine who's a craft person named Powhatan Eagle.
Okay.
And there's a real personal nature to the powwow. It's not like cold, mercantile kind of setting. It's people getting to know people. And sometimes you make friends with people who've made something, and year after year, you come back and renew your friendship.
Okay. Okay. That's wonderful. I hope to actually go to a powwow one day.
Mhm.
And I noticed that everything you've talked about, you've actually included,
Mhm.
you know, in their adventures.
Yes, and I think it's important to write about what you know or write about what you'd like to know. One of the two. But the thing about so many things that are written about contemporary or Native people in general is they're written from a distance by
Okay.
someone who has no real experience. And I'm not saying that only Native Americans can write about Native Americans. That's kind of a silly thing to say. But you have to write about what you know, especially when you're writing for young people. To me, they're the most important audience. They are the future, and they need to be given truth. They need to be given opportunity. They need to be given a wider view of the world than just what is in front of your own face. And I think the whole Reycraft series has that kind of philosophy behind it. So I'm delighted to be part of it.
And that leads me to my next question. Why Raycraft?
I would say the simple answer to that is that Wiley edited the book and asked me to do it. I would say, would you like to do this? Okay.
Love Wiley.
Yes. Yeah. But I think also I like the idea of working, one, with a new publisher, and two, with a publisher who clearly wanted to incorporate a Native point of view and
Yes.
therefore got a Native illustrator. I've
Yes.
had arguments over the years with other publishers who have not wanted to take on a new illustrator who was Native American, but to stick with someone who was not Native, who I knew would not do as good a job in representing the culture and the reality that this particular illustrator, and this is his first illustration, his first book.
Ah,
It's really great. And there's a lovely picture of Dale DeForest in the back. And
yeah.
Dale is really
Yeah.
cool. I've not met him in person, but I love his work.
Well, speaking of Dale, you both are from the same nation, tribe?
No,
No, you're not.
no, we're from
Okay.
different nations. In fact, what you'll find is, I love the bio in here. It basically talks about, I'm an enrolled member of the Nulhegan Band of the Abenaki Nation. So that's in Vermont and the Northeast. And Dale was born in Tuba City, Arizona, raised on the Navajo Reservation.
Okay.
So two very different tribal nations. And that's important for people to recognize too, that here in North America, in the United States, there are more than 500 recognized, tribally recognized by, and nationally, federally recognized different nations. And we have dozens and dozens of different languages and traditions. But there are certain things we have in common. And I think one thing that Native people have in common is this long and complicated relationship with American culture. where we've often been stereotyped and expected to be a certain way. And I like the idea that you see a grandmother wearing glasses and not wearing regalia. She's
Right,
just wearing
right.
everyday clothing, and a grandfather wearing everyday clothing. At the same time, you have people in the pictures who are wearing traditional regalia, the sort of thing that you would imagine Native people wearing.
Right,
So you get the picture of a complicated and not one-dimensional world.
right, right. And how did you and Dale come together to do this series?
Well, we were brought together by Wiley. Wiley found Dale. I didn't know Dale before this.
Okay.
And one of the nice things that Dale did, he wanted specific references for Northeastern powwows.
Okay.
So we sent him a whole bunch of photographs from different powwows that we've put on over the last decade.
Wonderful.
So there's a very direct reference to the way people would dress. For example, if you look at the drum group in the powwow, the people who are drumming and singing, none of them are wearing regalia. They're just wearing the kind of everyday clothes that drummers are known to wear. In fact, often you'll see the drummers just sort of dressed in a way that you wouldn't know that they were drummers unless you saw them sitting at the drum, and that's where they are. There's that kind of picture of them.
I'm hoping to find something, find one of the pictures here. Well, this is
Yeah.
a really nice spread.
Yeah.
As well.
If you look at the back page, on the bottom, you'll see the drummers, back page of the book, back cover.
There we go. That's right.
And you can see they're just wearing sort of everyday clothes.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful how you can mix the history with contemporary, especially for today's kids.
I think so. I think it's important to have a sense of history. And that's one of the things that often a lot of young people don't. To them, something as recent as the Afghan War is ancient history.
Right.
And yet I grew up with friends and relatives who had been in World War II. I actually knew World War I veterans. So there's a long spread of history that has been left behind. And again, I think that the Reycraft books are doing a good job of giving a window into different histories, a broader and a deeper view of history through the books that they've chosen to publish.
Thank you. Thank you. And what would you say to librarians, to parents, to teachers when they are picking up your book and using it in various ways?
I would say that in the tradition of Native storytelling, a good story should be interesting, so people will pay attention to it, but it should also contain a lesson so people will learn from it. And I think that's something you'll find in the whole series of the 3 books I chose to write, that they are, I hope, entertaining, but they also, each of them has a number of different lessons that can be learned in a way that's not just hitting you over the head with it. A good story stays with you, and you may not realize until later the lesson you've learned from that story. And I also think that because of the format, they're bright, they're accessible,
Yes.
they're fun to look at.
Yes.
And 2nd and 3rd graders really need things that are enjoyable.
Yes.
They don't need to have things that are purely didactic.
Yes.
And it's a mistake sometimes that we make. We think we have to pound information into children, or sometimes you just have to hand it to them in an accessible format, and they choose to absorb it. And I hope that's what will be true of this series.
I think it will. I think it will. So what are next steps for you?
Well, as always, I'm working on new books. That's something that I love to do. I just love to write. It's who I am. I'm also doing a lot of storytelling. And I'm working very closely with our Nulhegan Abenaki Nation.
Wonderful.
We are working with the state of Vermont. The government has actually been very cooperative with us. In fact, my son Jesse, who is a fluent speaker of our language, will actually be teaching Abenaki at Middlebury College.
Oh, wow.
He's
That's
developing
terrific.
a new immersion program at Middlebury. He and I were asked to open the first session of the Vermont State Legislature this year. So we went to the state capitol and delivered an opening, a benediction in Abenaki and in English. And we'll be doing more of that sort of thing with the Vermont community and with our nation over the next several months.
Okay. And for those who are just discovering Joe Bruchac, Joe, how many books have you written? You've been doing this a long time.
I think right now it's over 170.
My goodness. Okay. Okay, do they all center around Native American characters?
I would say the majority of the books I've written, which are for young readers, and young writers, I hope too, are focused on Native American concerns and Native American characters. But my family is mixed ancestry. I have Slovak ancestry on my dad's side, thus the name Bruchak. My mother's side is Bowman. My father's side is Bruchak. And I've written 2 novels that have been published, which have Slovakia as a center. In fact, one of them called Dragon Castle is a sword and sorcery novel. And I've also written lots of poetry. I wrote much poetry. It was actually a graduate of the Syracuse University writing program and had 12 books of poetry published before I ever published anything for kids.
Wow.
And my poems could be about anything. I write a lot about nature. And I think it's important for us to have our eyes open to the world around us.
So you need to write a book of poetry for us.
I could certainly do that if anyone asked me.
Great. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that you will go onto our Reycraft Books YouTube page and see the rest of the interview. I thank you for joining me today, and maybe in one of the upcoming days, I will read that first book that Joe was talking about, or maybe I will preview the third book, which hasn't even come out yet, and you'll be the first kids in the entire United States to see it. Well, I hope you have a great day and a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see all of you back here next week. Have a great day.